Welcome to Jacket Jockeys with Justin.
And me.
All right, we're back with a very special off-season From cast from the Book of From, um, Volume 1. Um,
Volume 3, I would think.
Volume 1 for us.
Volume 1 for
Volume
I
1
was
for
gonna say
us.
what makes it so special is that it isn't about Yellow Jacket.
It's very special in that
Very
way.
special.
I mean, hey, look, isolation, food shortages. What's not Yellow Jackets about this? I mean, we had
The
cicadas.
woods. Cicadas, that's right. So we can still use our trademark
Buzz,
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 buzz.
buzz.
Yeah, see? Ha! We gotcha. We gotcha. Yeah, so in case you're living under a rock or whatever, I'm glad you get podcasts under your rock.
It's a rock podcast.
Anyway, rock. This is going to be covering season 3, episode 1, which has just been released this very day on which we speak to you. So this is like hot potatoes, as they say. That's not what hot
Mm-hmm.
potatoes means,
They
is
do
it?
they do say that.
This is hot goss.
Hot potatoes. Gotta keep throwing those hot
I don't think
potatoes.
they say that. Hold on. Wait, what's the thing? It's
It's hot off the presses.
hot up to presses. Thank you. That's what I
Potato
was looking for.
presses.
Potato presses. Yeah. It's called Shatter.
Um,
That's the name of the episode. Yeah, we're picking up, some of you, if you're followers of the Mr. podcast with the Claude and the Justin. I'm speaking like a wormhole alien now. Anyway, we talked about the first 2 seasons, and here we rewatched the first 2 seasons, so we've got that stuff pretty fresh in mind. Some complaints and commentary on that may come up along the way. This episode does pick up pretty directly from last season. I mean, there's no big time jump or anything. We just kind of jump right in where we left off. So, it's like pretty strongly connected, I think.
yes.
Very Lost-esque in the way they would kind of do things. They usually would pick up, after an intro where it's disorients us, which
What do you mean we have to go back to the island?
exactly, exactly.
Um,
So
yeah.
yeah, so like, do you want to say anything in general?
Well, I'm just processing a couple things. One, I'm not Claude, so don't expect the same level of rigor as you may have enjoyed on previous podcasts about from this channel. Two, I'm just processing the title because I actually didn't know that until you just said it.
Yeah, I didn't know it until I was doing the notes and I saw that's what it was called.
Mhm. Um, and yeah, the one of the fears that I not fears, but one of the things that I didn't want to have happen in this episode didn't, because that's one before we watched it, we talked about some of the things we were hoping would or wouldn't happen. Um, and I was pleased that we got forward progress on all the main storylines, unless you've got,
Yep,
I mean, not necessarily a lot of forward progress, but we checked back in with
pretty
everything.
much everything. Yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
but I'd say this episode raised a lot of questions, not least being how many bathrooms are there at Colony House?
That's actually a good question that I didn't even think about. Yeah, that's weird.
You're not supposed to think about that,
It's
but it is massive.
it's
There's
a
got to be at
big ass
least
house. There's no way they have one bathroom.
it's got to be at least a 2.5 bath.
Yeah.
I would say 2 half baths probably.
Yeah.
So 4 places to pee.
Yeah.
Including also, of course, the woods is always an option. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And I would say there's probably also some buckets to throw up in. So I'd say
Yeah.
everyone is to
Sure.
blame in that scene.
A box on all your houses.
Yeah, well, I think they have gotten a pox on all their houses. I think that
Or
was
a plague, actually. Anyway,
plague. Well, that was
let us be accurate.
quite driven home in this episode. Um, so yeah, shall we
What was the bathroom
The plague,
situation?
no, the plague on all of their houses.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so, but you're not suggesting that the crops are rotten because they can't adequately share a bathroom once there's a pregnant woman in the house, are you? Are
I'm
you?
not suggesting that. That would be a
I don't
weird
know.
thing to suggest.
Sort of sounded like you were bringing in Shakespeare
It's a good crackpot
to
theory.
bathroom
No, I was
shaming.
just saying like both sides of
I
that
know, I
conflict.
know.
Oh,
I was
okay. I'm
joking.
sorry.
It's a sign of
I
a good joke when you
I
actually explain it.
I can't I can't
Um,
read your humor apparently.
I'm a little curious about some of the crackpot theories that are out there on the internet because you follow those things more closely than I do.
Yeah,
But maybe
yeah.
we'll save that for the end.
Yeah, no, I don't know them all because honestly, like, it usually doesn't interest me because they usually think it's people crawling up their own asses rather than
You know
anything.
that some of the people listening to this are
Oh, I'm sure.
your,
I'm
but not yours.
I'm sure. Hey,
Yours are good.
no, no, no. I mean, look, here, I mean, if you've listened to this podcast before or the other ones that I've been on, you would know that, I think the way we do things here is if it's a crackpot theory, we'll admit it. I'm not gonna try to take it too seriously. Otherwise, we're trying to stick to what they got and, like as much as we can, like use that as the basis for saying stuff. And I feel like, that's the best way to avoid going up your own ass. But does it happen sometimes? I mean,
Obviously.
probably. But because I get fixated on certain ideas and
Yeah, crackpot theories are not the only way that one can go up one's own ass talking about a TV show.
yeah, yeah, sure, for
Speaking
sure.
of,
Sure.
shall we?
So yeah, yeah, that like I have like some very specific and very general thoughts about this episode, but I do feel like it to properly talk about them, we have to delve into what actually is happening here. So I think probably it's best to continue. But I will just say that like overall, it was kind of shocking. Like I think I think Walking Dead did this, like something like this. Having a first episode where like a really bad thing happens, and like a character dies and stuff. Like it's, to start off on kind of a really
Yeah,
grim
you
note.
really don't expect that.
Yeah, I didn't. Although when I watch it again, the foreshadowing is heavy.
Yeah,
Heavy. God, I didn't notice it the first time.
there's
But
a
the
lot
second
of,
time, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many lines that are hinting at what's going to happen.
yeah, the episode is full of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it definitely sets the tone and, so it was effective on that level. I appreciate that we picked up with the outside world. I was worried they're going to leave us hanging, but I also appreciate that we didn't only see the outside world. We still continued with, the from town and what they're dealing with and all that. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It didn't blow my socks off, but I think it was a good episode, and so I'm ready to like get into this season 3 and see what they're gonna throw at us next, because there's some stuff introduced in this episode that's I don't know, it's definitely new things have arisen, and they may connect to other things or they may be brand, I don't even know,
yeah.
but there's definitely some hints of some things that could be coming, and we'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, I just want to say that more generally, before you get started. So yeah, anything else before we
Well,
dive into the
in the previously on, they replayed that scene where I'm really bad with names, but the guy that had moved into the house after Sarah moved out of the house,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. I forgot that
who's
guy's name. I want to call him Randall, but that's the bus guy.
yeah, that's the best guy. But yeah, we'll call him Rondel.
Grandel? Okay.
Grand,
Rondel.
Grand,
Grundle?
let's not. Gary, we'll call him Gary.
Okay, Gary. There you go.
When Gary shoots Boyd and he says something about like this is all is happening because
Mm-hmm.
of what you did, like it's just it raised for me the question of when did this sequence of events that, I mean, it's still unfolding, but what was the definitive thing, if there was one single definitive thing that set us on this track. So maybe that's something for us to think about after we finish walking through the episode.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it has multiple facets, and
Yeah.
only some of them are really Boyd's doing.
Right.
So
Well, and I mean, obviously, some of them are also just because the show wants to continue, and so they're gonna expand instead of,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
contract. So anyway,
yeah,
but yeah, it was just
yeah,
something that I was thinking about because there's a lot of th- there there are other lines in this episode that are like, all right, boy, we're punishing you now
yeah,
because of what you did. And it's like, well, he did the music box thing, he did the worm thing,
yeah,
he went out into the woods and like tried to find the edge, and it's like, yeah, you just keep like working your way back. you know what would have happened if and I was kind of working back mentally, and I got back to that dipshit opening the window for the girl
mm,
he leaves the flowers for,
yeah, yeah,
that as like a central turning point in this whole thing. um and so
yeah.
then, yeah, anyway.
Well, yeah, so I was just gonna say, like, the crop spoiling, I don't think that has to do with anything Boyd did. I think that is a consequence of
The
the
storm.
radio and the storm. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what they imply.
Yeah. Which that's really like Jim and Jay, like they were the ones really pushing for
Yeah,
that, so like Boyd didn't really have anything to do with that.
right.
So I don't really buy that Boyd is responsible, but I do think he was responsible for bringing the bloodworms, and I do think the bloodworms led to the cicadas, and I do think the cicadas led to what happened to that guy's partner. I don't know. Um, so in that sense, I can understand him blaming Boyd. They did
Right.
cover up that they killed a monster and hid the
Right.
body, and there's stuff where like I can kind of understand.
Yeah,
If you're not watching the show,
it's a good point about the crops, because the crops in this episode, and I guess we should talk about this when we actually get to the scene, but they say like the storm destroyed most of the crops. These are the only ones that survived, and in defiance of their expectations, they are rotten.
yeah,
So they don't expect them to be rotten. It's not
yeah,
like it rained so hard that the soil could never dry out, and so now they're rotten.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that would be scientific.
It's like the soil was tainted from below, like, whoever's
Right.
controlling the place, like, made it, destroyed all the crops, in addition to, stuff like the house collapsing and
Which happened at the same
the
time.
light bulbs blowing up, and,
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that happen, and I complained about this without a podcast. When
it's
when
much better to
we,
complain with the podcast.
I'm looking forward to finding that out. Um, that it wasn't obvious to me. And I don't actually want TV shows to explain everything to me. But there were some causality questions that I had at the end of the previous season as well, of like, okay, is this happening because of the tower, or is it happening because of Tabitha digging, or
Hmm.
is it happening because of what Sarah and Boyd are doing
Hmm.
on the edge
Yeah,
of the
that was all going on
woods?
at the same
Is it
time.
happening because of the bottle tree thing? I feel like I really
Yeah.
want to know about that fucking bottle tree.
Yeah, the bottle tree's one
It
of many
seems really important.
unresolved mysteries
And
at
then
this point.
these cabins in this episode. Okay, all right, stop. I'm gonna stop talking. Let's start going through.
Okay. All right.
Unless you want to
No,
respond.
no, no, that's fine. Yeah, I agree. I mean, just generally speaking, like it does like take a lost mode a lot of times where characters will see things and not necessarily tell anyone about it, or way later, or or in a limited way. And it also leaves like, you have characters like interpreting things we don't know if they're even right.
Right.
And also like a lot of times, yeah, it's very hard to understand like what they want us to think, or if they're really just trying to be vague about it, and let you decide, and also leave room for themselves, whatever they want to do later. I don't know how much of a specific plan they have, but they're definitely like very cagey. Most things on the show, like we don't know shit. I mean, God, I mean, we learned things, yeah, but like, I mean, in terms of fundamental stuff, like, I mean, what do we got? I mean, like discovering Dharma was a big deal,
Yeah.
because it
Oh,
showed.
maybe they'll find a hatch and they'll find some orientation films.
Yeah, exactly. That would be
And then we'll
nicely
learn
original.
all about the government experiment that started this whole
Yup,
thing.
yup. It's the government, man. Shut up, Jim. God, enough with you. Anyway, okay. Sorry, I hated when he was like that. That annoyed me. All right.
Jim is a character who you love to hate, I'll tell you.
I don't hate Jim in general. I
I
just hated him
sometimes
in
hate
that plot.
Jim. I sometimes hate Jim,
I,
but
I sometimes hate Jim as well. I'm saying I don't
yeah,
hate him overall because I think he has his moments. But yeah, that whole thing with Randall, that was just very
oh my
annoying, and
god,
I'm glad
yes.
that's over. Although the issue that it raised hangs in the air, I think, and I felt it in this episode with the character that I suspected, then didn't suspect, and am now back to
Okay, all right,
suspecting.
we gotta, yeah, we're
Anyway,
gonna talk about that.
we'll get to that. Because honestly, like I like when we rewatch, I was like, why did I stop? And I don't even
Yeah,
remember.
I have a theory
Like
about
just
that.
because they did never revealed it at the end of the season, like maybe that's why. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't.
I got a theory about that, but we'll talk
Okay.
about it later.
Okay. All right.
It's not a very
So
good one.
okay. Well, I can't wait. Bad theories are my favorite. Or boring theories. Bad and boring is
Ooh, this
actually
one
the
might be bad
best.
and
Yeah,
boring,
I love
actually.
it. I
Yeah,
love it.
love
Double
it,
whammy.
love it.
Love
Stay
it.
tuned.
Love that for you. Okay. So we open on, guess what? Guess what, America? You ready for Tabitha in a hospital in, as everyone guessed, Camden, Maine.
The most famous Camden.
We all knew that's where she was, right? Everyone knew that, right? I mean,
Yeah, Camden,
no surprises here. Anyway,
Maine.
Camden, wait for it, Maine. Yeah, not the one you're thinking. Okay, the doctor asks her for information about who she is and how she got there in that state. She offers to call family. Then a nurse comes in and says the police are on their way. Doctor says it's just a formality and then steps outside. Tabitha rips out the IV and prepares to do what the Irish call a runner. I don't know if you've heard this phrase. Listen to some Irish crime fiction,
Are
but
you
it's
are you assuming that the listeners aren't Irish?
that's a great. Hey, no,
You put this out on the Irish
I
Podcasting Network.
I I mean I hope all of our listeners are Irish, but just by numbers it seems unlikely. So, if there's any of you who are not from the golden land
If
of
you're,
Ireland,
yeah, if you're, it's green, right?
golden
Rolling,
land, I
rolling
says.
hills of green grass. Let us know.
It's the golden sunshine that provides the green.
Ah, ah.
Yeah.
Well, you would know. You listen to all that Irish crime drama.
I do. I just like the phrase a runner.
Yeah,
I just
do a
think that's a
runner.
great one. Like
Yeah,
we never say that,
she does
but
a
I
runner.
think we should.
People really love pulling out their IVs on TV.
Oh, it's such a
God, I
scandal.
cannot fathom. I would have to really need to do a runner
Yeah.
to want to do that.
Yeah. To be fair, it's a fairly wild situation. I don't know that this is the right call, but I understand it. So anyway, she sneaks out of the room and then out of the hospital. Incidentally, she sees a floor number 13 on the elevator on the way out. Don't know what to make of that, but it did
It's
happen.
very conspicuous.
The police pass by on her way out. And then she wanders the bucolic streets of Camden, Maine. She sees the boy in white across the street. Boy in white waves and she tries to follow. He seems to go in a coffee
Oh my
shop.
God, that you skipped over something else that people love doing on TV, which is running out into a street without looking.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I didn't.
Don't do that,
Promise.
kids.
No, don't do it. No, no matter what we say.
Okay, so he runs into a coffee shop for apparently no reason.
Yeah, I'm not quite. So I'm actually not sure if that. I don't know what happened because so he seems to go into a coffee shop, but when she goes inside, it's a different kid in a white shirt. She tries to ask him, "What do you mean it's the only way?" Referring to the thing that he said to her in the tower before he pushed her out. That is the first of two times that she questions in this episode why he said it's the only way. I am unbelievably glad that this happened because that was my fucking question. And I wasn't sure, at the moment, I thought like, oh, he's just saying I have to push you out of this thing. I'm sorry. It's the only way to get you to go home. Like I thought that's what he meant. Like I thought we were supposed to think
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to think it was obvious and it was that. But when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, but it isn't obvious that that's what he meant. He could have meant a lot of things. It's a vague thing to say. And like because she's bringing it up twice in this episode, it actually makes me think there's a point there. And we're seeing Boy and White outside of the town. I mean, or the from world. I mean, that's like unprecedented. That's crazy. I mean, having someone get out is already crazy. Tabitha getting out, she came from there, right? So it's less crazy, I think, that Tabitha got out than like the boy in white can just like appear in the real world. I mean, that's like what is she just imagining that or is that real? Like that's my question. And then with this floor 13, I mean, I had
Yeah.
this I had this conversation with Claude yesterday about from and we were speculating about stuff and he said like he brought up the idea that like this real world could be an illusion and like I don't think that's out of the question for the record. I don't. I pray that that's not the case. I really don't want them.
Yeah.
Like my response was
Like the flash sideways kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like spoiler alert.
Well,
That's
if you
a
don't explain what it is, then they won't.
that's a
If you
major
don't,
spoiler. All
if
right,
you
sorry.
don't know what it is,
All right,
then
I'll do an older spoiler that is less of a big deal, like The Matrix or something.
mm,
Where it's like she's actually just trapped somewhere or even unconscious back in the from world. Like Victor found his mother's body there, for example, right? He said that at the end of season 2. Like maybe she consciousness travel, like maybe there's some weird thing going on.
oh,
You know what I mean?
oh,
Maybe
yeah.
there's some weird thing
Like
going
her
on.
body is at the base of the
Yeah,
lighthouse, and she's just a consciousness traveling.
yeah,
I do think that the conspicuous shot of the 13 on the elevator is really that does make it seem like a fantasy situation. But
yeah.
I didn't think that anything else support nothing else that I saw made me think it.
I'll tell you the other thing that made me think it was the priest. I found the priest to be kind of weird.
The priest was weird, but that just because the priest was weird doesn't mean that this is all in her head.
Oh, I agree. I agree. So there's two ways. It's in my head. There's two ways it can go. Either it is all in her head. Well, actually, there's three ways. It is all in her head. The priest is actually like some kind of insider who knows
Yeah.
something about and he's directing her
Yeah.
because that's part of the thing. And Boy in White is probably implicated in that too, if
Yeah.
that's true. And I've had suspicions about Boy in White. Is he Jacob or is he more the Man in Black? I'm not so sure because like the way he's been behaving is very questionable, I think. He told Boyd to get in that tree and then he ended up with Martin and the bloodworms and stuff. And like, was that a big help, boy? Was that helpful? Anyway, I'm just not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, he could have killed Martin instead of trying to help Martin escape.
Yeah.
And then what would have happened to the bloodworms?
Well, and why is Martin so vindictive? It's
Is he
weird.
vindictive or is it like um some kind of imperative to live? Like the bloodworms have made him crazy, and if he knows he's dying, he has to like transmit the bloodworm. I don't know. I don't know.
Like
Maybe
they're
it's
they're
vindictiveness,
they're influencing
but
him
yeah, like a
to do that,
biological imperative to I don't know.
survive and stuff.
That's a whole other question, which is not really relevant to this episode.
No, I agree. it relates to the idea of the boy in white and what his true motives are.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the time, like the boy in white. We've got all these players, and actually, Boyd alludes to this when he's talking to Khatri in like the next scene,
Mhm.
where he's like, "That wasn't my
Yeah.
wife, so what are you?" It's like,
Yeah.
I can't tell
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, he
Yeah,
got real southern when he started talking
yeah,
about
he did. Yeah, yeah. Call me Cowboy Khatri.
Patrick. Anyway, yeah, like I just yeah, so like it doesn't mean it's in her head, but it definitely made me think that there could be some conspiracy, which is a different way it could go.
Yeah,
The third way it could go is like it's like the guy. I remember there's that episode of Lost with Jin, and he goes to this like toy store to get this bear, and like the toy store like shop guy like is like fishy and weird,
really.
and like it seemed like he was hiding something, but like not really. Or even Michelle Forbes character, Oceanic representative character, right? It seemed like she was like hiding something or whatever, but like nah. So like it's possible that they want to build intrigue and they want it to feel a little uncomfortable, but like
Yeah,
really there's nothing like I think that's possible for
yeah,
sure. But nonetheless, it just seems, I don't know. Watching it again, I was like, it's weird that he's like, oh, I want to open up Victor's lunchbox. I want to
yeah.
see
Tell
what
me about
snack
this
he
one.
put in there for you. And I'm like, why? That's weird. What's wrong with you? You're a weirdo. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the sort of innocent interpretation of that is that he wants to know the actual contents of the lunchbox and sort of test out the claim and like under just
Hmm.
keep her talking,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
without scaring her away.
Yeah, sure, sure,
And
sure.
like reacting as if he believes what she's saying.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, no, no. That would be the like he's fine and it's not as weird
Yeah.
as it could be interpreted. But anyway, um, we will come to that eventually. But yeah, this appearance of the boy in white, I mean, to me, that's like I was wondering what she would see in the outside world, and I suspect she's gonna find Victor's sister. I still believe that, despite what happens in this episode. And I was also wondering, like, will she see something else from the from world? Like, and Boy in White is not what I expected. I assumed that he was trapped in the from world. Like I thought that was the point. But if he is trapped there, he can project himself outside it. Apparently, assuming again that that wasn't in her head,
Right.
which I don't know for sure. Either that specific thing wasn't in her head, or the whole world is in her head. I mean,
Mhm.
either one would sort of explain it.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, this was like starting us off with this. I'm like, what? Okay, this is wild. Like,
Yeah.
this is not exactly what I envisioned.
Yeah.
I thought she was gonna talk to the cops, and I thought they were gonna say she was crazy, but they
Yeah.
skipped that and they were like, she already is like, yeah, they're just gonna say I'm crazy, so I'm not even gonna talk to them. Like, we won't even go down that road of having those scenes, which is fine with me because that can be tedious. Um,
Definitely.
Okay, so you ready to continue?
Yeah.
All right. So we get our credits, and then we open on Boyd back in the From world, cleaning his bullet wound. Bullet wound from Frandle, or I
I'll tell
forgot that
you,
guy's
yeah,
name.
yeah. I'll tell you, they're
Grundle.
short food, but they're really uh profligate. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Could be.
With the
Good one.
gauze.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like don't even
No, they
worry
have an
about it. We got
endless supply
a
of gauze.
shitload of
You
ace
don't even want to
bandages.
know how much gauze
Oh
they have.
my
If
god.
only they could eat
Can you eat
gauze.
gauze?
Let us know. Jacketjockeys@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe. All right. Anyway, okay. So we open up on Boy cleaning his bullet wound. Um, uh, as I referred to, same heighted ghost Khatri is there.
Same. Oh my god. Oh my
I had
god, that
to.
is such a
I
weird
had
inside
to.
joke.
I had to. I had to. Y'all know. Y'all know. Y'all know. Okay. Same heighted ghost Katri is there and thinks that Christy should be handling that. Boyd says she's busy. Katri sums up some problems and what's happened up to this point: getting shot, the sleep desk, crops destroyed, cold weather coming. He thinks Boyd should panic more. Why aren't you
So
panicking
helpful.
more?
More helpful advice from a
Fucking
priest.
same height as Ghost Country. Like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't like the live version that much, but this Ghost version, I don't know. He seems fishy to me here. Fishier to me here than before. Before it seemed more like he was just a way for Boyd to have a sounding board to like talk to himself, but without literally talking to himself. Like,
What if what if the things do feed on hope and Kotri and the wife from the last episode are being kind of steering him like it doesn't really make sense though. But you know, 'cause she's like, they don't feed on your fear, they feed on your hope. So give up hope.
mm-hmm.
And then he's like, you need to be panicking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I would not rule it
But
out.
I thought that Kotri in the all the previous appearances of him post death, just thought was manifestations of Boyd's own thoughts.
Yeah, I did too. That's
And
how it
I
came
kind of
on.
still feel that way this time.
Well, the only reason I don't feel that way this time is the following. Or at least like I'm more open to the possibility that's not that. Boyd tells Kachi about seeing his wife in the chamber where Martin was, and eventually like Julian, Randall, and Marielle were there, and music box, and he had smashed music box. Anyway, that's what he's referring to. So right, he sees his wife. That's the scene you were just talking about, where she says you should. It feeds on hope, and you should give up hope. And he thinks that that was not she. That's right.
Yeah.
He thinks that was not she. Just, just got a little grammar for you.
A little
You didn't
grammar for
expect
a little
that, didn't
gold
you?
star. Gold.
Hey, I wrote it the other way, and I was like, you know what? It's wrong. So
Well done,
anyway,
yeah.
and he wonders as a result who Katri is, because he's also
Yeah.
a dead person that he's seeing speaking to him. Katri refuses to answer. And Boyd hears something outside and goes to investigate. Okay. So yeah, so I just have to mention here the other example we had of this was Tom, the bartender, showing up to Jade and talking about stuff personally that made it seem like it was really him. But then this scene and the way Katri responds comes off like it isn't Katri. That it doesn't necessarily mean it's a sinister force, but the way he responded suggests to me that it's not Katri.
Yeah, I'm not sold on
Why wouldn't he just say, I'm Father Country? Like, why not just say that? That's
but
what
it's
Man in
not
Black would say. you know? Like, why would you be willing to admit, like, oh, I can't tell you that, or I'm not gonna tell you that? I forget exactly how he phrased it, but
it's like that I cannot tell you or
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't read much into
Yeah,
that.
or
That
I'm
just
just in your head, like you could say that too. Like it just the fact that he said that made me more open to the idea that
fair enough. My interpretation of it though is that Boyd himself doesn't really know how to explain why Kotri is appearing to him. So
mhm,
as a manifestation of his own thoughts, that's what he's gonna say back to him.
it's valid. It's valid. I can't prove it's not true. The wife definitely seemed like she was up to some shit,
He
and
seemed fishy each time that she's appeared.
yeah, I
You
agree.
remember she
I agree.
appeared just like in the with the like
Mm-hmm.
blinking
The
light.
Flash. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was a
know
weird moment too.
what's going on with her.
Was that in the camper?
He was in the camper.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's just as the show goes on, we're getting more and more sprawl of characters, phenomena behaving a little
Also
differently.
phenomena.
Thank you. Behaving differently from how one might expect from previous scenes. So I'm just gonna say each time she has appeared, she has seemed to me sinister, but for in different ways.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the spider one was weird.
That was really different. That was
Yeah,
very different.
totally different. Yeah. Yeah. But
But yeah, it's not just the question of what is it, what are the
yeah,
motives?
yeah. I agree. That's more the
That's the
key.
main, yeah.
Yeah, like because yeah, it's like, oh, the local spirit, you know, Gabriel or whatever, like it's like okay, cool, but that doesn't really mean anything. Like
Yeah.
more importantly, whose side are you on and what do you want, you know? And he's telling Boyd to panic. And to me, that's like I get saying to panic because there's a logic to panicking in this
Yeah.
situation, but also is that helpful? Like it doesn't seem helpful to me.
Right. Who would it be helpful to?
Yeah, like I feel like it's basically never helpful to panic, even if you're in a hopeless situation.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It definitely set off alarm bells for me. So going forward, the vision stuff, in terms of dead people, like I'm on the lookout for something there because this opened the door that they didn't open before. The way they played those scenes before, it didn't seem like we needed to ask this question, even though I did. But like, they
Yeah.
played it in a way where many shows do this, like Dexter or whatever, where they have a dead character and like some of our characters just talk to a dead character, but like
Yeah.
we're not supposed to like make a big deal out of it. Like, ooh, it's a ghost. Ooh, it's a vision of a malevolent spirit or something. Like I don't think we're
It's just like
supposed
a
to.
sounding board for their own thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that when the scene with Tom and Jade, it could very well have just been Jade's like um, mental sounding board based on how Tom was in their previous encounter.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean it's a classic bartender thing,
Yeah.
but it is also like, the bartender shows up to Jack in The Shining, like
Yeah.
you can have you can have that scene but still with sinister overtones,
For sure.
you
I
know.
just didn't interpret it that way.
I didn't either actually. It's only this scene that made me reconsider the earlier ones. The wife for sure, but the wife seemed different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not, yeah. Anyway. All right. So you ready to continue from there? Okay, so Tian Chin, I think I'm saying that right. That's Kenny's mom. I keep seeing them put her name in the subtitles, but they rarely say it in the show, so I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, that's my best guess. Is forcefully leading Ethan back home. Ethan accuses Victor of telling them, presumably, that he went looking for his mom, Tabitha, who, as we know, is back in Camden, Maine. Jim tells him to go inside. Julie shows up and then abruptly leaves, saying it's not Jim's fault. And then we transition to Jim packing because he's gonna go now. You know what? Ethan's leaving. I guess I'm gonna go. Like, all right, good job, Jim. The way to not be impulsive. Anyway,
Ugh.
Jim
Yeah.
packing and Boyd trying to talk him out of leaving. Boyd tells him some of what happened when he went out there with Sarah to try to talk him out of it. Jim said, "Well, you made it back." And Boyd suggests that Tabitha might be. But Kenny comes in and breaks the tension, and Boyd suggests a safer way, which they will discuss later. So yeah, this is just sort of follow up on the reaction to realizing that Tabitha's been gone. Although I guess like from the way they said it, it hasn't even been that long at this point. I think it's been like 1 day since she left, basically.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when with this, like how long has it been? It seems like various.
Or it's even the same day. Like I don't think there's been a night since she left. She left during the day, and Julie woke up. I think that same day from Boyd going out to the chamber and smashing
Surely it's not the same day.
the. I thought it might be the next day, but I'm just saying I think it's a very short period. I don't think they showed a night. I guess is my point. I don't think they showed a night between.
Fine.
Yeah.
I think it's been however long the writer wants.
Well, I agree
You
with
know,
that.
there are several things that I'm like, you really want this to be just like the next day, but you want that to be like a few weeks later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like the
yeah, yeah.
crops, there's like frost on the ground.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
pregnancy, like there's various things that they
Oh, yeah, yeah.
want.
They act like it's been longer than it really has. Yeah, you're right. It's inconsistent. I agree. It's just like, you know, um, uh, because of the way things happen and the place where we left them and stuff, it comes off like we just picked
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
right where we left off. But anyway, yeah, otherwise, this is mostly business carrying us forward to where the episode's going. So I think we can
Yeah.
continue if you're ready.
Yeah.
So at Colony House, Fatima is throwing up and occupying the bathroom, the one and only
The one and
bathroom
only
at Colony
bathroom.
House, to the great consternation of checks notes Nikki, a character we've never met before and hopefully we'll never meet again.
Yeah, she's irritating as hell.
Yeah, like the most annoying character ever. It's like, oh my god, you really want us to hate this character. Anyway, Ella shows up and tells Fatima she needs to eat, but she says her stomach hasn't been right. Tilly says she'll be all right. Thanks for jumping in,
Ooh,
Tilly.
Tilly.
What's up with you, Tilly? You're weird. You're weird. I'm not getting over it. All right. Donna says we have work to do and leads Alice away to harvest. Elgin passes by and they don't worry about it. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, this is also sort of business, like picking things up, picking up the pregnancy thing,
Yeah.
picking up
Yeah.
the crop thing, picking up the Elgin
Yeah,
thing.
letting us know that Elgin is still avoiding sleep,
Yeah.
and that, get round up a crew of the gossipiest people you can find to come and help us to harvest these crops.
Oh God, yeah, I know, right? Bunch of
Talkers, dramatic
chatterboxes.
chatterboxes,
Yeah, yeah.
worst case scenario thinking.
Does this mean anything? Like, what's wrong with Fatima's like stomach? Like, is it just like general pregnancy business,
I mean,
or is there something fishy going on? Like, I
I
don't know what to think about
I
that.
think they definitely want us to wonder, is this ordinary morning sickness, or is she pregnant with cicada baby or something?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
could really
yeah.
go either way. This idea of like the soil is all poisoned, like
Mm-hmm.
thematically,
Mm-hmm.
feel like there could be something there
Yeah, yeah,
about
for sure.
fertility.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Speaking of Lost, um, and Yellow Jackets, honestly. All right. So, are you ready to
I'm
continue?
ready.
Okay. So Boyd tells Jim and Kenny about being in the tent with Sarah and camping out where the talismans were. He calls it a hut, although it looked to me more like a cave. I don't know. You be the judge. Go look at it. You tell me what that is.
Oh,
Didn't look like a hut to
he's not
me.
talking about the hut where he locked up Sarah.
He says the hut where he found the talismans. So I can
Yeah.
only assume that he means that little cave area.
Yeah, I thought of that more like a
He
cave.
specifically says it's the hut where I found the talisman. So I just
Okay.
think it has to be that
Yeah,
place.
I wouldn't describe that as a hut, but
I
okay.
wouldn't either, but that's anyway. I don't know. Unless I read it wrong. I double checked the line. He does say it's the hut where I found the talisman. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, it's like, did they forget that it wasn't a hut? I don't know what they never actually go there, incidentally. It doesn't even come up. So,
True.
um, okay. So, anyway, where the talismans are, right. Kenny wants to go with Jim. Boyd wants to talk to Kenny outside. Kenny thinks Boyd is afraid to go out there. Kenny wants to be there for Jim, for the kids, right? Doesn't want them to lose their parents.
Yeah, there's so much heavy-handed
Oh
foreshadowing.
my god. I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And they are interrupted in their conversation by hearing some glass breaking. And then they find Jade in the bar, lying below a sort of like symbol
Can we call it a web?
web thing. Yeah, yeah. It's a bunch of string like strung together like string is normally. Um,
I wouldn't call that normal.
string is string. I just mean
String
it's
is
string
strong.
strung,
Yes,
string
over,
strings,
yes. In a sort of network, a kind of a
and
web.
it's strung. Yeah. Yeah, mimicking I think the idea is the symbol he saw when he was in the
Mm.
cave, the monster cave. There's that scene they replayed in the previously on where he sees the Ankui kids that Tabitha went to rescue, supposedly, in a circle on these little like stone beds. I don't know, stone altars. I'm not sure what to call them, but they're arrayed in a circle, and then above him is the symbol in like plants. It's like vines and
Yeah,
stuff like
vines
growing
or
up there.
roots.
And I assume this is supposed to be a representation of that idea, like the vines that are
Yeah.
growing. Anyway, they drag Jade away because he's just like muttering to himself, and I guess he threw something through the window. They don't really explain what that was because like it's like he's lying on the
Yeah.
ground. Like, why did
There's a window broken.
something go through the window? I don't even know. He had his bottle in his hand too, so I
Different
like I
bottle.
don't even know what he threw. But anyway,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. It's just a way for them to get his attention, I
Yeah, it's
guess,
my first
or
thought.
get their attention for him to get their attention. Anyway,
My first thought when they walk into the bar is that the web that he has strung with the string reminds me of this spider web idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And they mention again the spider webs in this episode.
yeah.
I don't know if there is any significance there, but um yeah, the symbol remains as mysterious as when we yeah, first saw it, I guess. I mean, because we keep seeing it pop up in places, but it's not actually giving us much data when we see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 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 It's really just picking back up, with that thread that is kind of left hanging at the end of season two. You see Jade down there in a cave, and like that's where they leave it.
Yeah.
You know, since I want to say this, and I don't think there's any other place in this episode where it makes more sense to say. I'm gonna say it now. So I just want to like quickly run through this thing because I think it's interesting the shuffle that they play here. It's not a Lindelof shuffle, but it's a shuffle for sure. So like, there's this weird thing where, okay, so Tabitha digs in the house for the wires and electricity, caves in, she falls in, she goes down into the cave where the monsters sleep. And Victor's down there for separate reasons. And they're, trying to get out of there.
Well, he's in there waiting for her.
He's in there waiting for her, yeah. Sorry, I was just trying to blow past all that, but yeah, just because I have a specific thing I wanted to address. So, like, there's more to the story for sure, and that includes the symbol and the stuff Jade's seeing and all that. That's under and the dummy and like the little like stack of
I
rock,
hate that dummy. I hate that dummy.
the suitcase. There's a lot of weird stuff down there. It's a huge unanswered question what's going on in the monster cave.
Yeah.
Anyway, while they're down there, Tabitha sees this like kid, with like hair that's sort of like thinned out and like in a cage, like some kind of weird primitive cage down there in the cave, right? She sees this kid and like they don't know, it's like, is the kid a monster? Did the monsters put the kid in there? Is it like what is going on? And she comes out and then she starts having visions of the kids, and they on Kui and they show up to her multiple times. She goes to the cave, she sees them again, right? and but then like eventually she ends up talking to Victor, and he tells her that his mom went to the tower to rescue the kids. And as far as I can tell, she just assumes that that means that those kids that she's seeing are trapped in the tower and she has to go there to rescue her. I don't think she has any reason to believe that other than Victor tells her this thing and there's kids involved and she's seeing kids. Like, I think that's the only reason. Like, there's no concrete connection between the kids in that tower that we ever see besides this thing that Victor's mom supposedly said that may or may not even refer to those kids. It's totally unclear, in my opinion.
There's so many layers to that. Um the yeah, right. One being, well, uh it doesn't seem to have worked since there's if it was those kids are still here.
It 100% didn't work.
Um she didn't necessarily have a strong reason to believe it, even if it was true. Like maybe she didn't get it right, you know? Like we had that thought that maybe, the sister catches up to her and goes through the faraway tree instead.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
still suspect that that happened.
so like there's a variety of ways to kind of badger that idea. Um, but that's a good one. Yeah, but
So
I hadn't even thought of that because it's like, well, we did see that one kid in a cage,
in the cave.
cage, which implies confinement.
Yep. True.
Um,
True, but in the cave. And she even sees him again by the cave. And so I'm just like, everything is
right,
screaming that the kids are connected to the cave.
right. The connection between the lighthouse and the cave is not obvious,
And then she
but
just assumes that they're, and the other part of it is we gotta rescue the kids, and then that's the only way to go home, whatever that means.
and then who gets to go home?
Yeah.
And then
And we know
also
Victor's
like
mother, I think, didn't make it out. Her body was found by the bottle tree. Victor says that. His sister may have made it out. I strongly suspect that she
there's
did.
this other kid as well, the kid in white.
Boy White, yeah.
And so and they look he does not look the way that
Not
they
at
look.
all. Not at all.
Um it doesn't mean that he's not capable of looking like that. Like we've seen with the monsters,
Yeah,
they
they
can
can
present a
change their
certain way.
appearance. Yeah,
But
it's true. But the
yeah,
other kids have not done that, at
but it
least so far.
right, but it also potentially connects to the whole like this is the only way thing.
This is the only
Like
way.
the
Yeah.
only way for me to get something that I want is to trick mothers into thinking that
Mm-hmm.
freeing children from the tower
It
is the
made
way
me
to go.
wonder.
I mean, I don't know.
It made me wonder. But then again, like it definitely made me wonder if there was some weird manipulation going on with the boy in white. And the fact that he's appearing on the outside too makes me further wonder that. But nonetheless, this funny thing happens where she goes to the tower trying to rescue the kids, and then she sees the boy in white and he pushes her out. And we talked about that. Like that's what led to where she is now. But at the same time, Jade discovers that the symbol was in the cave, right? He hadn't known before, right? Victor didn't tell him. Even though he was specifically inquiring about the symbol, Victor didn't tell him because, Victor's a
Right, but
weirdo.
Tabitha told him.
Yeah, Tabitha tells him, right. And so then he confronts Victor about it, and he
Mhm.
decides to go explore the cave
Right.
himself to like get to the bottom of this symbol because he's obsessed with the symbol and he's been having these visions seemingly connected with the symbol. It's been since season one at this point. This is a long-term arc we've been on here. But it's funny, now the kids are handed off to him. He goes in there and he sees the kids, right in the story. And that's the thing he's recreating in this
Right.
episode.
Right.
So it's like there's this weird seamless transition of the weird kids from the cave from Tabitha to Jade. You
Do we
know?
see him leave the cave?
I don't think we do. I think in this episode it's implied that he
Well,
left,
yeah,
but I
but
don't
it's just
think.
I it's I want to know like how did how did he leave? How did he know when to leave? Like what I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
think they
TV
wanted to
shows.
cut away when he
Yeah,
saw the symbol and
right, right. But
and
it's just there's potentially more to go there, but we just cut to him. I guess they're like, well, we don't want anything else eventful to happen here.
yeah, yeah. You're just
Um,
supposed to assume he came back out the hole and then
yeah,
went and like started obsessing about it in the
yeah.
bar, which is his like new makeshift
It just
residence, I
makes it
guess.
seem like the him going there didn't really result in much.
Oh, I agree. I don't think it did result in much, except for it seems like he got handed the plot of the mysterious
Right,
kids,
right.
kids in the cave, and like what happened with them there, and like why are they appear? What is their deal? Like it's like they've attached themselves to him now.
Yeah,
The way they were to Tabitha before.
yeah.
You know,
Well, we'll see. We'll see if they show back up.
it's just funny when that happens because it's like you get led along this path and it seems logical, but when you look back, it's like, yeah, there's some leaps here that don't really make sense, and it's like, why did you think that
Mhm.
the kids were gonna be? What besides this one thing that Victor's mom says is vague and like you don't have any like
Yeah.
it's it's just funny how that whole thing hinges on that. And it's interesting that she does seemingly go home based on doing
Yeah,
that,
she
you
talked to her
know?
mom.
So it's like it sort of partially validates what Victor's mom said, even though the part about the kids seems like it was wrong.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, like, what happened with Victor's mom, and so,
Yeah, well,
like,
hopefully we're gonna get a little more information on that.
there's a lot of blanks there. The massacre of the town, all that stuff is like still up in the air. The guy Christopher with the journal, and there's like so many unanswered questions in that whole
Yeah.
like general realm.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. All right, so you ready for the next scene here?
Yes.
All right, so we go back to Tabby and Camden.
Tabby and
Tabby
Camden.
and Camden. It's a new show.
Spinoff. Yeah.
Netflix this
This.
fall. Get ready. You you loved Emily in Paris. Anyway. Um
Oh boy.
anyway, walking down the street, she finds a vintage pop-up sale. Finding two younger ladies there, she asks to borrow one of their phones, and one of them agrees, and she calls her mother and says she's okay and family's okay. Her mom thinks they're missing, mentioning that the police have been by. And she says she's worried and she tries to keep Tabitha on the phone, but Tabitha gets off the phone and tells her not to be afraid and hands the phone back. And then she leaves the vintage pop up sale seeing a church in the distance.
Yeah.
And we will pick up from there later. So this did, I talked about this with Claude as well last night. Like the idea of, I mean, they did basically answer this question already, at least in a specific case with Marielle and Christy. Like in terms of the outside world's view of
Yeah.
what happened to these people, right? They don't like cease to exist. Like the police know they're missing. The
Mhm.
family know they're missing.
Right.
You know what I mean? It confirms like those basic things that there's
Right.
not some massive cover up happening,
Right.
which I think suggests to me that that it's not like a government thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Like if it's a government thing, it's a rogue thing.
Here's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's a government thing. But I also don't I don't find that logic compelling.
Okay.
But I mean, that's okay.
I just think if the government was really doing this, I think they would be making more efforts to suppress the
Like having fake bodies or something.
yeah, some shit like the fake wreckage,
Yeah, fine. I think
which
it's
wasn't the government, but
right. But
anyway,
people do disappear, right? I mean,
people do disappear. Sure. Yeah. I just think if they're doing this, like
yeah,
specifically, they
fine.
would have planned more. I agree that it's not ironclad. I agree that it doesn't give like 100% guarantee that
Yeah,
it's not the government. It's just to me a suggestion that like it doesn't go
fine.
along with the idea. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But hey, if it's the government later, I'll be right here saying I'm the asshole.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I don't really think the government is all that sophisticated. No offense.
Well, if they have technology to produce this from
Yeah.
world, they're a whole lot more sophisticated than we might think.
Yeah, they
So
should
that,
probably turn their attention to inflation.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, if they can do that, I would think they could do better controlling the damage in the real world. That's really
Yeah.
the point I'm
Yeah.
making. But
But I
anyway,
just think I think having them just vanish without a trace, I mean, that's something. Maybe part of the experiment is seeing what happens to people when their loved ones vanish without a trace.
yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see.
For the record, I don't think that. I don't think the government. I don't think this is some big like government thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's just we'll see what the consequences are that she made this call. She does kind of allude to that later.
Yeah.
That it might have been a mistake. And if they're being monitored and stuff, I still think that doesn't necessarily mean it's the government. But anyway, I'm just gonna go on about I don't think it's the government.
Yeah.
If it's it could be a rogue group. It could definitely be some like nefarious individual cabal happening, but like I don't think anyway, I don't think it's a government thing. That just doesn't seem right to me. Um but anyway, are you ready to continue
Yeah.
here? Okay, so Kenny and Christy enter the diner to get rations from Tian Shin. She tells Kenny to be careful. Kenny tries to reassure her. Yeah, he's gonna be fine. Don't worry about me, Mom. I'm gonna be all right.
Uh,
And of course, he is gonna be all right. Like, this is another scene where I was like, oh, right, that's why we have this scene. I didn't realize the first time I was watching this what the point of this was. Later on, I did. This is actually the only scene Christy appears in the entire episode, incidentally.
wow.
Much like Sarah, she makes her like
Yeah.
one scene cameo. We'll probably get more later, but they're just not heavily featured. Okay, so then we go to Ethan putting a puzzle together of a bucolic seaside town of unknown
Mhm.
locale.
Could be Maine.
Um, when Jim enters, Jim gets Ethan to say he won't run off again, and then he says goodbye to Julie as he's about to go leave with Kenny to go find Tabitha. It's very. I'm sure that mission's going to go
Without
really
any
well.
plan. They have a terrible plan.
Absolutely no. It's
People in
such a
this show
half-ass thing.
go out into the most dangerous woods with a really half-assed plan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and one rock to protect them.
Yeah. It is when you say it like that, it sounds silly.
Also, I think the costume and makeup people did probably their best job that they could do, but that child is growing
Yeah.
way too fast.
Yeah, if you watch those previously on scenes with Ethan, like you can tell he's significantly older in this episode for sure. It's like it's kind of like end of season two Walt, where he's not like the taller ghost yet, but like he's clearly older than he was when he started the show, even though it's only
Yeah,
been
it's
like
not
a week
outrageous
or
yet,
two.
but it's a ticking time bomb.
It is definitely a ticking time bomb, and it's not changing. I mean, this episode
That's why you should
is
have all kids played by adults. What you should have all kids played by adults who just like go around in like diapers and those bow ties and like a pacifier.
not just adults. Bradley Cooper.
Oh god. That's such a weird inside joke. Like only I understand that reference. But he's up for it. I mean, we've seen him. He's
Versatile, am I right? The voice of Rocket, I mean, who would have guessed?
he's his generation's Gary Oldman.
He is, and no one appreciates it. He's like Gary Oldman without all the accolades
Britishness.
and without being British. Yeah, he should be more British. Maybe people would respect him more.
Mm,
Anyway, I was just gonna throw in, there's this idea presented in a few scenes that the place is like manifesting stuff from their thoughts,
yes.
and I just wanted to, and there's like weird stuff like the bracelet, and they talk about the cicadas, and
What about the
and
bracelet?
they talk about some things they see that seem like they're connected to stuff that, like, there's a nursery rhyme too. I thought that might go in that category. Anyway, I was just thinking, like, this puzzle could be the place trolling them, you know
Oh,
like you could, like,
like having a puzzle that looks a lot like the place where
where
Tabitha
Tabitha is
is
exactly.
just the place kind of thumbing its nose.
I don't like the jukebox, like it
The
feels like the jukebox
jukebox
is sort of
is,
like
yeah.
providing cheeky
Like maybe
commentary.
it's a jukebox. Yes, it is. But sometimes it's sending signs, not just cheeky commentary.
Sure, sure, sure,
We
sure.
haven't heard anything from the jukeboxes in a while
Yeah,
because
no, the
we've never
jukebox didn't appear
actually
in this
been in
episode.
the diner that much.
Yeah, yeah, they do show it in the
Um,
credits always,
yeah,
but yeah, it wasn't.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna.
it's true, and now with Kenny's mom dying, I don't know what's gonna happen to the diner. It's gonna be a different situation there.
There was another thing from, yeah, maybe Sarah will take it back over. There was another thing
Oh,
that
that's actually a good
somebody
point.
said
I
this
didn't even think of that.
episode that seemed to manifest. Oh, what was it? Anyway, if I think of it.
Feel free to jump in if you remember. But yeah, that was just my thought about the puzzle because I do think it's weird. And it is, if you wanted to build a case that it was like some kind of hallucination or some kind of generated thing from the world, like you could throw in the puzzle as evidence for that if you want. I have to admit.
Yeah, so it might, the thing that I'm thinking of might be the kid um talking about Alma not having, now I'm
Oh,
gonna have to watch her friends die.
yeah.
But I feel like there was something else that he said that seemed to materialize. Something else that kid said. But anyway, let's go.
Okay. Okay. So, outside, Kenny waits with Boyd. Boyd mentions the spider webs are a sign they're going in the right direction. Ellis comes running up and tells him to come to the fields. Um, so I just wanted to say about this that like I think this is a little bit messed up. Like I think for the way they want to write the episode, it makes sense, but like I guess they just didn't bother to ask Victor, but like he knows a real quick way to get to the lighthouse, and it's just like no one asked him, so like
Yeah,
that's the
it's
only
really
reason they don't
unfortunate.
know that.
It's almost like they're not actually gonna end up going to
That's
the
exactly what
lighthouse.
I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like it feels
It's
like they
so
only
I am
do it.
actually so here's one of the reasons why I fucking hate Jim is like it's so irritating. Like he just goes through this whole thing with his kid about it's too dangerous to go.
Mm-hmm.
um and what would you even do, like where would you even go, how would you get there, we're not smart enough to do what Tabitha did and just ask
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Victor like where to go. But then it's like in the middle of the night, it's like, you know what? This was silly. Tabitha wouldn't want me doing this. Let's go home. Now
Yeah.
that we've been
Yeah.
gone for long enough for something disastrous to happen to you,
Yeah.
let's go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's so annoying. It's like it didn't occur to you before you left that Tabitha explicitly forbade you to go with her because you needed to
Yeah.
be there with the children. But then you remember later
Yeah.
after it's too late to be helpful. I
Yeah.
hate him.
Yeah.
I hate him.
Fair enough.
And I hate his pretty boy hair.
I
That's not true. I love his pretty
his
boy hair.
his hair is weird. It's a little shorter this season.
Yeah, he got a
Like
cut. Actually, what's her name also got a haircut. Um,
oh, Christy.
Christy.
Yeah, I noticed. I know that's a classic TV thing. Like
Yeah.
they come back and like it's the next day, but their hair's like real
Mhm.
different.
It was haircut night at the Liz.
Yeah. Who cuts hair in the town? Anyway, whatever.
Marielle.
Oh, is that true?
Well, she cut Christy's hair a
Oh, she
couple
did cut.
episodes ago.
Oh, she gave the original cut. Yeah, yeah. It kind of looks mullety now.
It's mullety.
Anyway, are you
I'm
shall we
ready. Yeah.
continue?
Yeah.
So
Unless people want to hear me share more opinions about people's hair.
hey, they might.
Chase is looking real
Feel
wild.
free. Oh man, he
He's
is.
out of
He's getting into
control.
that like mountain man territory. Like the beard's
Yes.
getting wild, the
Yeah, hair's
hair's
just
getting
straight
wild.
out.
It's just real like yeah, poofy going on there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Else takes Boyd to the fields. Donna's there, and she says that everything's rotten and they're out of food. And Boyd wants to know how many people know. So yeah, so this is where we start ratcheting up the problems. And based on where the episode goes, like it definitely seems like there's a plan here of we're gonna push them to this breaking point in this like specific way related to food. You know, that's how
Yeah.
it comes off to me.
Yeah.
Um plans within plans within plans. The thing I don't know is like, are there a bunch of independent malevolent forces within this world, or is there just one that's sort of behind it all?
Yeah. I've
That's
wondered
unclear
that.
to me. Because we haven't, but the way the monsters behave does seem like it's and not to mention some other stuff that comes up in that plot, like suggests to me that they are like tied in with some larger plan of what's going on in
Yeah,
the
well, they
place.
certainly seem that way in this episode. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that it has always been the case.
Yeah, I mean, you know, retcons happen sometimes, but let's just say that's what it looks like in this
Yeah.
episode. But there was the thing. Well, actually, I'll talk about that later. I'll talk about that later. The food's rotten. Okay.
Food's rotten.
So, all right. Meanwhile, people are gathered at Tian Chen's house looking for whatever food she has stored there. I guess she stores food there. I don't know. They didn't
Well,
really.
there's an episode in last season where all the conserved foods from Colony House get taken to the
Oh,
diner
I didn't remember
for
that.
consolidation.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
when the bus load full of people arrives and it's like, you know, we don't want to share with
Yeah.
them, things started getting tense. They consolidated everything down.
Okay.
And that was where the initial concern over food came because that one asshole who stabbed what's his name
Oh yeah.
was like, we don't have
Dale,
enough
I
food.
think.
Dale, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, we don't have enough food. I don't want to share with these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name is stealing food and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Victor.
So not Victor.
Oh.
Gideon, what's his name? The bus guy with the dreams.
Oh, Elgin.
Elgin.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So they did explain why all the food is there.
Yeah. Okay. I forgot about that. She tries to hold him back, but they force their way in basically. Um. So that's kind of just picking up on the previous
Because
scene.
Jim has selflessly taken the deputy with him on a selfless and pointless romp into the woods. So he's not there
Word
to
gets around.
protect the food stores.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Fair enough. Reasonable critique there. Okay. So meanwhile, Randall takes Alma the goat to try to kill for food. Ethan tells him not to. When he doesn't listen, Victor jumps in and pulls a gun on Randall.
That's what
Um,
I would do if somebody was trying to take a goat away to be killed.
I definitely was pleased with this, even though it's ultimately to little effect, sadly.
Oh God.
Not Victor's fault that this doesn't succeed in the end. And that actually like Randall seems like maybe his plan was better
Well,
actually.
yeah, I mean, for the record, I think that it is time to start thinking about eating some of those
I mean,
animals.
if they knew what was going to happen that night,
Well,
they should have slaughtered all the animals immediately.
yeah,
Like that was actually the best plan, but of course they didn't know.
right.
Um, okay, so anyway, Victor pulls a gun. Boyd tries to defuse the situation, getting the gun from Victor. Boyd tells Randall that he can't take the goat. He says, "This place will not break us," and he makes another live together, die alone kind of speech. They got to work together, right? And Randall gives up the goat, reluctantly. That's right, he gave up the goat.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, I mean, for goat content,
Yeah.
this episode is pretty solid.
I mean, only for Boyd to then turn around and have like a sidebar with Donna about how like, yeah, we really got to eat this
Yeah,
livestock.
we're gonna be eating
But it's
the
like
livestock.
we're gonna eat that goat, but we need a plan
Yeah, but I'm
first.
just gonna let Randall take one and do whatever he
Hmm.
wants. Like we gotta plan for it. But yeah, I mean, in retrospect, it's like it would have been better actually for them if they just did that, because then the monsters wouldn't have had a plan for the evening. Anyway, whatever. Hindsight is 2020, as the kids say. Jim and Kenny hike through the forest. You're ready, right? Okay. They come upon some odd, creepy, woodsy, Blair Witchy sculptures of like faces and bodies, like little,
Yeah,
I don't know what to call them. They're weird.
they're witchy
Um,
looking effigy type
yeah.
things.
And then they find a little like cluster of cabins that we've never seen before. Um,
Yeah,
they approach. Kenny wants to go back to the Talisman Hut. I believe he actually calls it the Talisman
he
Hut.
does.
For the record, Jim suggests staying there in one of the cabins of the Talisman. Kenny says Boyd didn't mention this place. Jim suggests that maybe Boyd's tent was dragged past this place, which is totally possible. In the moment, I was like, "Oh, I guess I believe that. That's fine."
I mean, I agree. He has Boyd has no idea, and this is why I thought I was calling bullshit when he's like, when you see spider webs, you know you're getting close. you don't know how you got to the spiderweb
Yeah.
place. You don't have a
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah. A
Anyway,
different part of the episode, he talks about how they were dragged God knows where by God knows what. And so it's like, obviously, he has
exactly.
no idea where
What
that
you got to do is you
was.
got to set up, you got to disturb the bottle tree,
Yeah.
then get in a tent and get
Yeah.
tumbled down by, and then you get up and there's a spider web.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
anyway.
Kenny wants to look around before staying there, and Jim agrees.
Yeah, so these cabins are interesting because on the one hand, if you're stuck there and you have to use whatever is available to make a shelter, it might end up looking like a log cabin
Yeah.
because you've seen them before.
Yeah.
On the other hand, do they look a little Civil War era to you?
That did not occur to me, but it's a fair point for sure.
And then, these statues, effigies, whatever they are, um, it just it raises the question, were they put there as a protective, as an attempt at a protective
Hmm.
thing, or are they somehow malevolent? The somebody made the talisman, and the talisman work.
Yep. Yep.
And then here are
Yep.
these things which might have been conceived as talismans or might be intended as, yeah, malevolent witchy objects. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unclear what's going on in this place, and there is another scene later that at least like adds intrigue to whatever's going on there. Um, uh, uh, I, I think it's also interesting to have like a cultural product, like
Yeah.
the monster stuff in the caves, like was also along those lines because it's like you think of like all that stuff as like having to come from the people who are brought there, and it's possible that the people who made those things were brought there for sure, like I'm not ruling that out at all, but it definitely seems like if it was people brought there, it was not people who are currently living in the town who made that stuff. It
Yeah.
would be people from an earlier era or something who hold up there, and I don't know what exactly, but yeah, maybe that's actually a good theory that like maybe that was their attempt to like ward off the monsters or something. And yeah, the idea is it's Civil War connected. I think that's possible. I mean, there wasn't anything like super overt to suggest that, besides the fact that it looks old.
There were some old ass wagon wheels.
Oh, you saw some wagon
There were
wheels.
wagon wheels.
Okay.
Wagon wheels. I don't know. I'm not a wagon wheel olive. I don't know how old they
You're
were.
not. Well, but
But
then why did I see that on your?
well, look, people
This
make a
is
lot of claims on their resumes. Okay, I got the job. That's what matters.
once you get the job, it doesn't matter what your resume says.
Precisely.
Good point. Good point. Okay. So we will come back to this. But
Let's
this
just stay
is
here in this creepy fucking place. Why not stay here in this creepy fucking place?
yeah. I don't. It's weird. I don't get it. But anyway,
More Jim being Jim.
Jim's being Jim. He's jimming it out here. All right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Tabby and Camden. She goes into the church looking for a confession. She says she can't tell anyone who she is or why she's there. They'll think she's crazy. That's what she says, basically. So this is where we get just confirmation of what she's thinking, why she's sort of like hiding out from the police and so on. Um, this it's all very like the lie, Oceanic Six kind of business here, for with very similar justifications. Um, Actually, it's honestly more coherent than what they did in Lost. Anyway, um, she doesn't know how she got there. I think just meaning back to the real world, not to the church. I think she knows how she got there by walking. Anyway,
Oh boy.
um, the priest offers some platitudes, but Tabitha isn't having it. She complains about God making the bad things happen, including Thomas. She tries to leave, and the priest follows. He asks about Thomas, her other children, if she has other children, and the lunchbox. This gets Tabitha to summarize how she got there. Again, wondering about this is where she repeats the question of what did "this is the only way" mean. That the boy in white she says she talks about that here. Um, she doesn't know what to do, where to go. The priest wonders, this is something she mentions, that Victor put a snack for her in the lunchbox. And so the priest wonders about Victor's snack. Ooh, what's a snack? Check that out. Like this, where I'm like, okay, that's weird. Anyway, it is functional. So whenever anything's functional, you can't necessarily read too much into it. But anyway, this gets her to open up the lunchbox. And inside, she sees an address with Victor's name right there in fucking Camden, Maine, where she is, coincidentally, or is it?
Well, it's obviously not a
And she
coincidence. What
rushes
does it
off.
mean? I don't know.
It's weird, right? It's weird. Because like when she had the lunchbox, I was like, well, okay, I was expecting her to find Victor's sister. So I was like, well, this will help like confirm your connection to
Yeah.
Victor, which basically it does in this episode. But it didn't occur to me, how would she find them? Maybe there's just an address in the lunchbox.
Yeah, I mean, I
It's such a
thought
simple
when
answer.
she strolled up to a vintage pop-up, I was like, somebody's gonna see that lunchbox, make some kind of comment, and that's gonna be the linchpin. But no, it was like it could have been anything. She
Yeah,
could have walked up to anybody.
yeah,
Um, anyhow, I was thinking before the boy in white showed up, I was thinking like, okay, what's she gonna do? She's gonna end
yeah,
up. She's got no money. She's got no
yeah.
identification. What? How is she gonna navigate this
It's not
situation?
obvious. Yeah,
So yeah, the lunchbox is
yeah.
pretty
The
critical.
bridge to a plan for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, so we kind of talked about this priest and like whether he's fishy or not. I do think it's not clear. But I think there's room for it, as well as, yeah, maybe he's just like trying to be helpful. I'm not 100% sure about it.
yeah.
Um, but
We'll
anyway,
see. Maybe he'll show back up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that'll tell the tale for sure. But anyway, this leads us into the next thing, so we'll come back to that shortly. You ready to move
Carry
forward?
on.
All
Yeah.
right. So Elgin is falling asleep next to Tilly, everyone's favorite mole. Anyway, um, he feels like something is watching him. That's what he says. Then Tilly asks, "Is that her?" And she should have said, of course, "Is that she?" But that's
Of
not
course,
what she
she
said.
didn't. No gold star for her.
Yeah,
For she.
sorry. And we see the woman, like weird creature figure, who was trying to drown Elgin in bathtub back in season 2. And she comes up to him and like puts her hands on his head, and then he wakes up and you realize, oh, that was actually a dream. That was something I didn't quite catch the first time.
Yeah.
And Tilly's not there.
Yeah.
She was only in dream.
Yeah.
So even if it even if Tilly is a mole, that wasn't Tilly the mole in the
That
dream.
wasn't Data.
No, it really wasn't. At the time, I was like, "Oh my gosh, she can see it. That's weird,"
So
but
I had
it's not
this
true.
thought with Tilly, and since this is the Jacket Jockeys, presumably everybody here has watched the titular Yellow Jackets. You remember how everybody thought, like I thought, and then I realized everybody thought that Adam was really
Javi.
Javi,
Yeah.
and then it became clear that the writers wanted you to think that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my thought with Tilly, that's her name?
That's her name,
Tilly?
Tilly,
Is that
with an
short?
IE at the end.
Is it short for something? Tilly?
I haven't looked it up. I
You
guess I
don't,
can
you don't
look
need
it
to do
up
that.
if you
But
want.
I guess my theory, which is not an in-world theory, this is the thing that I said at the very beginning that I had a theory and it was boring. So here you go. Is that she is fishy, but that the writers realized that the viewers were like catching on to how fishy she was.
Mhm.
And so they like scaled back on her fishiness.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I said, boring.
it could absolutely be that. And yeah, they just kind of like
I
changed his
just, there
mind.
was this whole, she arrives on the bus right at the time that we find out that there's somebody that, well, I don't know what we find out, but right around the time that somebody responds on the radio
Jimmer's voice.
to
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah,
yeah, in a way that makes it clear that somebody knows about what's happening on the island. I'm just always gonna say on the island.
yeah. It's
Um,
fine.
and
It's
then
clear
this
from the beginning.
idea of like, well, are there moles? which Randall says that I don't think Randall's a mole. Anyhow,
Yeah.
bus driver wasn't in this episode. That's all right.
Oh,
Not
you're right.
everybody needs to be in this episode, but I also have some questions about her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
once you start looking for a mole, it's like everybody seems to be a mole.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel like they could do a mole thing, but I started to like give up on it and think it was just some, it was like the way that plot goes in season two, like I thought it was like it served its purpose and like we're kind of moving on from that. So I haven't fully let it go, but I kind of did, I guess. And I guess that's why I stopped suspecting Tilly. Incidentally, I looked it up. According to the wiki, Tilly is all we got. They have not named any
Yeah,
like
fine.
longer version
That's fine.
or any last name. That's it.
No, I
It's
just meant
Tilly.
like, Betty is short for Elizabeth. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
think
yeah,
like
yeah.
some names are just,
I feel like it is short for something, but I don't know what.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Um,
Anyhow, Tilly.
yeah, Tilly.
Shall we continue?
Oh, sorry. I wanted to say something about
Yeah,
this.
we'll continue
So,
in that way.
so, uh, uh, the thing I wanted to say is like, uh, check out Mr. Podcast, from Cast season two and one. It's not called that. I don't know why I said that. Anyway, the podcast we did about From. I complained at length about, the whole thing with Martin, the bloodworms, the cicadas, the dreams, the nursery rhyme. They come for three or do they come for six? Blah, 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 blah. Don't, if the music stops, it's bad. Oh, you got to stop the melody, all that shit. And the dreams being like, this one woman, that got like Grundle's like partner, she's like ripped open in her dream. No one else, Kenny gets a light burn on his arm. And Elgin, I guess he supposedly gets drowned and stuff, but then the other ones get the milky eye. It's all over the place, right? But like I was like, okay, whatever. It's a little sloppy, but that's just, they took a while to like get to the point. And so we had these early warnings, and then we had like the end game thing with the three that were chained up in the chamber and all, and okay. But like this kind of threw me because they showed it in the previously on that scene with Elgin in bathtub. And I was like, that's weird. They're gonna come back to that. And then like when the scene opened, I thought like, oh, he's just like dealing with it. Like it's gonna be like a character story about Elgin. And then it's like, nah, he's still seeing this thing. Even though Boyd destroyed the music box, even though the music box was in that original vision, and it seemed like it was connected to that. Now it seems like they're saying it wasn't, and it's actually like a separate thing. There's this like mysterious woman demonic creature in the dreams like doing something. She didn't even do anything threatening in this. It's weird. She puts her hands on his head like she didn't really do anything. It did seem like she was drowning him in the season two dream, but in this one she didn't actually do anything overtly threatening. And so I'm like, what's going on there? Apparently they're
But
gonna
it's a
do something with this.
yeah, it's a gesture that is evocative of her drowning gesture.
That's true. That's
So
true.
it would maybe make sense that that would be in his fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're saying, and I completely agree about it's sort of all this inconsistency. Does that point to multiple phenomena or just weird writing or
Yeah.
like inconsistent? Another thing that we skipped over early on, but there's a comment about how Julie still isn't ready to talk about what
Oh
happened
yeah, yeah, yeah.
when and
Yeah, I didn't write it
Jade
down because it
doesn't.
doesn't go anywhere, but yeah.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, they're gonna need to give us something on that. We didn't see Marielle in this episode. There's
Yeah,
no
true.
reference to her.
Yeah.
Um, and
And they
Jade's
do reference her very briefly, but yeah,
there's no reference to how she's
how she's
doing
doing. Yeah.
after
Yeah.
having been in this like suspended state.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Jade doesn't reference what it was like being in that suspended state. Or not Jade,
Randall.
Randall. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Anyway,
No.
so it would be nice, and one might expect a scene where somebody asks them, What did you experience?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see anything that might lend
Yeah.
a little bit of light to what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow,
No, it's a valid point, and maybe that is going somewhere. I kind of assume that they wanted to move on from that, and it was kind of just bridging the gap, but I don't know that for sure. And if they want to tell us more, I am here to listen for sure.
yeah,
So bring it on. But I just think it's interesting that, when you watch that season two thing, that Elgin dream does stand out because it's like it's totally different from anything else we see ever. It's like it's weird and it's like what are they doing with this, and like finally when they come back to it I'm like, oh, they actually are like gonna make a thing out of this. It's not just this weird one-time vision.
yeah, but I don't like that woman. I don't think I found her to be completely unscary.
I don't like the effect and I don't
Um,
think it's scary, but I am curious what the point of it is
yeah,
you
we'll see.
know
I mean, it's one of the many signs that for me that the show is gonna really let me down. Because mystery shows like they love to introduce new new ways to be scary instead of digging into a central compelling conceit and like building a strong and cohesive world around that.
hmm
And anyway, I'm still here for it. I enjoyed this episode. I'm looking forward to the next ones. But I think that woman for me when she showed up to like drown him in a bathtub, that was like the first sign for me of like, okay, it's happening. The show is starting to let me down. Because it's also just this like Freddy Krueger thing.
I guess I'm more optimistic about it because they're doing something. Like I thought it was just a one-off bad image, and like the image is still bad, but like at least there's a point. At least it seems like they're trying to do something. Like they didn't just like pick this randomly and they're just gonna move on now, you
Yeah,
know?
I'd be happy to be proven wrong.
So yeah, not that I have like high hopes that it's going to be something like really amazing, but there is at least some actual intrigue there now that wasn't there before for me. So I just appreciate that.
Okay.
But I do agree that the pitfall of the show is ever present, and this could be a sign of that or not. We'll see. Kind of depends on where it goes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, I mean, I think Elgin, as a character, his thing, I mean, it really seems like he should be teaming up with Sarah because they sort of have had like similar experiences, and I mean, literally, the seizure and stuff, um, and like connections with the boy in white as well, like telepathic connections with the boy in white, which I don't think any other character had. Anyway, so we'll see where that goes going forward, but I'm like on board for something, but we'll see. Okay, are you ready to
Yeah,
continue?
yeah.
So Victor sweeps up while Donna and Boyd discuss the food problem. They talk about the animals. Tian Chen suggests planting smaller crops in different places, or smaller amounts of crops, I guess, in different little tiny corns. We will grow baby corns from now on, and we will only eat baby corns. They're so cute. Anyway,
I think
sorry.
it was a mouse who said
It
that.
was a mouse who said that. All right. Anyway, smaller crop in different places with different soil. Like maybe the soil isn't poison everywhere. Hey, it's a valid suggestion. Boyd agrees, and they discuss using the animals to buy time for these new crops to grow. And as they're talking about what to do with the goats, Boyd realizes that Ethan is listening, and he goes out to talk to Ethan, and Ethan asks him to kill Alma first so she won't have to watch her friends die.
Uh, yeah. It's pretty awful.
And we get foreshadowing line number 10 or whatever. Like, yeah, they're
Yeah.
really laying it on thick. I'm taking it more as like thematic foreshadowing than as like a literal manifestation. That's how it comes off to me, but
Yeah.
in this world, those lines can be blurry, so I'm not really sure, but that's the way
Yeah.
I'm taking it
I agree.
for now. I'm ready to be wrong later. But I do almost wonder if Ethan's gonna leave the show because he's getting too old. if they're gonna have to walt his ass, you know?
Yeah.
And the fact that they start this episode with him running away, you know, it's just like, are they gonna do some shit, you know, where he's like gone? I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, what are
That's
we gonna do
vague
with that kid?
speculation for what might happen because of this age issue.
Yeah.
Um, okay. You ready to continue? All right, so we're back to Tabby and Camden. Tabby, I don't call her Tabby. I just said that because I thought it was funny. Anyway, Tabby, not Tabby, Tabitha. There we go. Walks up to the address from the lunchbox. A car arrives with the man going into the address. He tries to shoo her away, but sees the lunchbox and she realizes that is Victor's father, who had not been mentioned previously, and it does make sense that he would be outside. And yet, I didn't think this is what was going to happen. I thought she was going to find the sister. I still think she's going to find the sister, but anyway, she finds the father first because I think it makes sense if they're going to develop it that the surprise of the sister would come later, that they wouldn't like jump straight to that. This is like you know, a development in that direction.
Yeah, that makes
Hooking up with
sense.
Victor's family. How was she gonna find Victor's sister anyway?
Was
Who
there
knows where she
was
is?
there a reference early in the show about his dad not being a good person?
I don't recall that. It's possible.
I feel like well, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would have to do some work to. I'm not sure. Like I
Yeah,
don't
see,
specifically remember it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen
yeah, I
because I
think
don't remember a lot of things.
like all of America, I'm just really interested in yeah, what's this conversation gonna be?
Victor's story is a rich tapestry.
Yeah, and he's got
There's a
this whole
lot.
like, I don't want to talk about that right now. And it's
Hmm.
like, okay,
I know, I know.
fine, I
It's
get it. You have had this extremely traumatic life.
yeah.
And also it's just the writers don't want to tell us yet.
Yeah, yeah, that is definitely a big part of it. It is frustrating, but it makes sense in a way, but it's also like, yeah, but say something, like be helpful. God. Like I was annoyed like Jade was when like he didn't even mention that the symbols in the cave. It's like
Yeah, I
oh,
mean, I think
don't ask questions. Like, okay,
I
fine.
mean, it's quite possible that he's got a point and we're seeing that.
It is possible for
I
sure.
mean,
I
if you
mean, he
just
has his reasons. I don't say they're invalid. It's just as an audience member who wants to know more about stuff, it's frustrating
yeah,
when you have characters standing in the way of that,
yeah.
especially characters with knowledge, specific knowledge, you know? It's like, God damn it, fucking say something, you know?
But we know his name is Christopher.
It's like,
What else could you
his
possibly
name
want
was
to know?
Christopher. Thank you. Good night. Like, all right, great. Well done, Victor. You held up your end. Yeah, it's just like, you know, I always wanted them to like confront Juliet about Jacob. You know, I thought like it's weird how like she gets away with like never responding to hardly any questions about the inner workings of the others. And
Yeah.
it's just, I get
Well,
that
she doesn't
vibe
actually
here.
know anything about Jacob, though.
Well, okay,
You know that now.
I could go on about that, but I generally agree, and yet I do think she knows what happened internally relative to Jacob for the others, and I think that's something we weren't really fully privy to, especially what her opinion was, like because she doesn't express one openly ever.
Fine.
So anyway, that's not the same thing, but it reminds me of that in the sense that you have this character who like knows stuff but isn't going to talk about it for show reasons, basically.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the connection I was trying to make. Okay. So yeah, we'll come back to that. I think that's where we leave Tabby and Camden
Yeah.
this time. So that's our big turning point, and that definitely sets us up to find out something
Yeah.
about Victor, and you know, possibly leading to his sister, possibly just information about how Victor and his mother and sister got there. You know, whatever happened. You know, presumably we'll find out. Okay, are you ready?
I'm
All
ready.
right, so we're back inside one of the cabins. This is with Jim and Kenny. At night by the fire, they made a fire in there. Um,
That's not safe. Kids, don't do
hanging
that.
out in there overnight.
You could get carbon monoxide poisoning.
Thank you for doing that. I don't want to get sued. Um, Jim speculates that because they didn't see the spider webs, they're going in the wrong direction. He wants to get to higher ground. They hear.
He's always looking for higher
I
ground.
know, I know. It's like, get over it, Jim. Higher ground doesn't solve all your problems. Oh, if I could just elevate myself. I just want to elevate things. Like, it's his roller
Mm.
coaster experience, right?
Oh,
He's into
you're
like things going up high,
right.
right? Like,
There you go.
that's his core character.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe he should use some of these trees to build like a really tall scaffolding.
Hey, just saying,
Just
not a bad
saying.
idea. He could totally build like a lookout tower. Why not? They got wood. There's tons of wood out there.
Yeah.
Cut down some
Although you remember
trees.
what happened the last time he built a tower? That wasn't really a great thing.
It was horrible, but maybe this will be
It's
better.
and all the food is poisoned now.
No radio. No
No radio
radio.
this time. No radio.
Right? It'll be better.
Yeah,
Right?
probably.
Who knows? Okay. So they hear footsteps and some thudding outside.
Yeah.
And then Jim decides, oh, I shouldn't leave the kids alone, should I? I guess I should go back. It's like,
He's so
okay,
infuriated.
let's all just like slap our foreheads together because it's like, really, Jim? You didn't think about that before now?
And if we were expecting Kenny to give the speech that he gave to Boyd in the I guess season 1 about like no, you told me you had to do this, so you got to do it. Da, da, da. You would be mistaken if you thought we were going to get that again. You remember
Yeah.
what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
Well, like when Boyd is like, I need to go into the woods to try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Kenny's like, you can't go. People need you here. And
Mhm.
he's like, I'm going. They, you do it. And then something happens. I don't even remember what. Oh, right. They try to break into the diner or something. Like something happens that makes him think like, no, I can't go into the woods. I have to stay
Mhm.
here. And he's like, fuck you, you can't stay here, you just convinced me that you have to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
out there and do this. And it's like,
yeah.
no, that Kenny's not there. This is just the Kenny that's like, okay, we'll go back in the morning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure that we didn't
Yeah.
miss anything.
You drag my ass out to this creepy like
Yeah,
campsite
like
with
are
like
you really gonna feel better if you
effigies
go back without having actually pursued a little further? Like
and like
it's just
mysterious sounds outside,
yeah,
and we're not even gonna
yeah.
like continue. We're just gonna
Query
go
whether
home
they're going to be able
now.
to find their way back. I mean, I guess probably they will because people always seem to find their way back. Probably because the show doesn't work if they all just remain lost wherever they go in the woods. But it is a little bit astonishing that with the woods being as big and confusing as it is, people always still somehow make it back to the camp. Sarah just made it back to the camp by this like wild contrivance of I went into a faraway tree and it took me
Mm-hmm.
to the church
And it
basement.
dumped me in the basement, the place where I was
Um,
before. Yeah, that's
which
weird.
makes no
It
sense,
doesn't make
but
any sense at all. Totally agree.
none of the trees are particularly far away. But anyway,
Yeah. Um, yeah, so do you have any opinion about what the
about
noise is
what's tromping
outside?
around. No, I really
Because if it's a monster, that seems pointless to me.
yeah, I thought the same thing.
Like, I feel like they
Um,
would just tell us if it was a monster.
I thought the same thing. I was a little surprised that there wasn't the scene where he like tries to
Yeah, it's
look
like,
out a little
shouldn't they?
hole.
Like, they didn't even talk about it, which I
Yeah,
thought was weird.
yeah,
Like they clearly hear it, and it almost seems like Jim's sort of reacting to it. Like the noise makes him reconsider. Like it comes off like that, but he doesn't say anything specific about it, and they don't even say like, "You think it's a monster?" Like it just seemed weird to me. Like,
yeah.
I feel like in a normal show there would at least be a couple, even if they don't,
Especially because there
answer the
doesn't seem to
question.
be wildlife other than crows.
Yeah,
So it's not like, oh, it's probably a fox.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, I presume we'll find out something. I mean, this is a new location. I suspect we're gonna find out something more about this place.
Yeah.
this season. So, of course, we'll probably pick up with this in the next episode. I don't know how much further they're going to get with it, but
Yeah.
anyway, it's an interesting note to end this on. Even though, yeah, Jim's mission was just a fucking bust. Like this is like so like oh my god, like why did you? This is such a waste of time. The only reason why I'm not more annoyed at Jim is because I do think this place is interesting and the
Oh
fact
yeah,
that
yeah.
this got them out there. But besides that, just for the character himself, this is a horrible decision.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have done this. And better late than never, but also, why did it take you so long?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, we're entering the end game of the episode. This is where we get, it's a very long sequence. There's a lot of stuff. It's going to take me a while to get through all this, but it's basically one long sequence from here on
Okay.
out.
I will refrain from
So
interruption.
you can jump in if you want, but it's going to be a while before I'm done.
Yeah.
You'll know when I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing, we see the monsters release the animals from their pen and the barn.
I am shaking my head. It's just this is sorry. I just said I wasn't gonna, but it's
First
like
sentence.
it's absolutely awful watching it unfold. They never do anything like this previously, but okay, fine. It's so, oh my god, it's so, were they listening? It's so bad. And the final thing, I was also shaking my head. I was like, oh my god, but you don't know whether the barn is empty. And indeed it wasn't. Anyway, all right, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you were
I
right.
just like this, just like, oh my god. Oh my god.
I mean, they show this scene right here. They show him right there at the barn,
Yeah. Yeah.
opening the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the
Where do you
barn
think
is
the cows came out from?
and the barn is not you know protected. Uh,
Which is odd.
I think it is odd. I think it is odd. You
But
would think they
it
would.
does seem like once a door has been opened, they just can come the fuck in.
Yeah, but they open the door.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, anyway, I just, that's another bone I have to pick with this that comes up in this scene. But
It
anyway,
does.
right, I'm
It
gonna stop
happens later
talking.
too.
I'm gonna stop talking and let you go.
Yeah, it's a long thing. If there's a thing, like I said, feel free to jump in. I'm gonna comment on a lot of the stuff that happens here, but I feel like I want to get through it and
Yeah.
then like go back over it instead of like taking it bit by bit here
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it really is all one big thing.
yeah.
Okay, so we see the monsters release the animals. Boyd pours some of Katri's liquor and looks at the map of where they all came from. That's there in the sort of sheriff's station. That's actually the post office, I think. Um, Jade wakes up. Boyd offers the liquor and Jade accepts. Boyd asks what's going on with Jade, but he isn't ready to talk about it. We'll talk about this later. All right, Jade the Saeed of this season. Anyway, then Boyd notices the animals roaming freely outside. So he goes outside because, they just talked about this is our only food source and it's just wandering the streets now. Um, Jade follows as they try to wrangle the cows back into the barn. Some sheep and goats run by. Victor sees and says they must go now before the bad things come, which I think just means the monsters. Ethan tries to stop him, but Tian Chen tells him and Julie to stay inside as they leave to help with the animals. Sealing her fate, Randall wakes up and he's sleeping in the bus and sees what's going on. He sees the monsters approaching the house. This is the house where they just left. Um, he honks the horn to warn them. They keep walking the animals back towards the pen and the barn and stuff. Ethan sees Alma and tries to go outside. The grandmother from the pilot episode is waiting there, and when they open the door and manages to force herself in, and they run outside. Sarah shows up. Hey, Sarah's still here, and takes them into the bushes. The monsters continue to pursue the animals and the people more so, obviously. Um, Jade gets stuck with a cow, like stuck behind, I guess, and a monster The monster comes up and slits the cow's throat, and it dies there in the street. Sarah, Ethan, and Julie run for it, and Randall opens the bus to let them in. As the others lead smaller animals into the bar, which there's a mistake in the closed captioning. It said the barn, but he clearly said the bar, and
It's
that's
clearly a
where they're
bar.
going
Yeah.
if you look. So anyway, that was just something I noticed when I rewatched. Into the bar. Anyway, Tian Chen and Boyd try to get the remaining cows into the barn because they're too big to go in the barn. Anyway, the monsters pursue, but they shut themselves in the barn just in time to have the monsters already inside the barn and ready to attack. One of them, it's sort of like this, almost like sheriff type character. It's very weird. Anyway,
We saw him in a previous
we did,
episode.
yeah. He has appeared before. He was there outside with like Fatima and Ellis, like saying like, "You'd feel better if you came outside." Like
Oh
he was in
yeah.
that scene. Um, it's almost like he's the new Smiley now that Smiley's dead, you
Yeah.
know? Anyway, one of them, so I don't have a name for him, but anyway, it was that guy, said, references Boyd saying, "You don't fucking break me!" You know, that thing they played in the previously on, right? He specifically references the fact that Boyd said that, and it's like, all right, well, we're gonna find out. And they grab Boyd and Tian Chen and separate them, and one of them scratches Boyd in the shoulder and they handcuff him to a post. The monster says, "You think this place can't break you? Let's see." They start to kill Tian Chen in front of Boyd, removing some of the back of her scalp. And he tries to get her to look at him and like comfort her as much as he can, I guess, in the situation. And we close on Boyd as he endures watching Tian Chen killed by the monsters. I mean, I'm
Tortured at least.
100% certain that she's being killed. If she's still alive, it's gonna be like that thing with Van, where like she got her face eaten by wolves and she was burned alive and she was fine. It's like because she gets a chunk of her scalp and you see like brain
Yeah.
and stuff, and I'm like, if she's still alive
It's
after
not
that,
brain. That's just
you don't
like
think that was brain? It
I
looks
don't think
like
it was
brain to
brain. I
me.
thought it was like, just whatever
Maybe
juice,
it was just fleshy bits.
fleshy bits. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just saying, like, regardless, it's even if she does end up dead before the sun comes up and they presumably vanish. Who knows what happens to them when the sun comes up? But even if she is dead, it's just gonna take a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think like from foreshadowing and the way they played the scene
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
Boyd, I think she is supposed to, but we'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, I think they at least want us to think she's going to die there. It's possible they'll say more happened. Anyway, I just think she's probably going to be dead at the end of all this for those reasons. However it ends up happening. All right. So I got a lot I want to throw out here. I'm gonna try to get
Let's
through it.
let's do it.
So yeah, you mentioned like so there's this thing at the end. This thing at the end that they do with Boyd and Tianjin, and there's also, releasing the animals and also like killing one of the animals too. I'll throw that in as sort of along these lines because there were some lines, Donna had that line talking about her sister and stuff where she talked about how the monsters like to play
Yeah,
and they like to torture you and
yeah,
so on, and yet it kind of clashes with the rest of the series because usually what you see them do is immediately kill people, like where they'd
yeah,
be so dead so fast because they're like torn open.
yeah.
Like there's no, that's not torture. That's like they're gonna be dead real soon. Um, but we do have this one thing that happens in season 2 where there's this woman who comes on the bus who hides out in the bar, and eventually they decide to let the monsters in. Her like boyfriend or whatever
Right.
like is killed, but they take her out in the woods and they stick like a metal. Actually, it was from a specific place.
Oh yeah, it was from a trap.
It was from a trap, right? It was a trap that they set up for the animals, right? So and they like and it's like through her a tree and through her head, and they just left her like that. And that's the only time, in my opinion, where we really saw the monsters behave in a way that's even vaguely similar to this. I think.
Yeah, and do they say that? Does she say that
Yes.
they had made
They
him?
made her watch him die.
Yeah,
She absolutely does. So yeah, like that is where
yeah.
I can kind of see it
All right.
being in line with, but it is like an escalation of that. And it's also like they've never let us like that is described to us. We
Right.
don't actually see it. We just see the aftermath. So it's the first time we've actually seen them do anything like that, and that struck me as real weird in season 2, even though like the setup was there with the monster knocking outside. It's all believable in the sense of what the setup. It doesn't seem
Right.
like it's fishy. How else would this happen? I mean, how did they stab that thing through a tree anyway?
Right.
But like, like I'm like ready to accept it. But I think, yeah, set based on what happens in this episode, it actually makes that more plausible to me because it fits more, you know. So, but anyway, just the fact that they release the animals like they know there's a food shortage,
Mm-hmm.
and this will cause them to be even more desperate than they already were, right? It seems clear that that's the
Yeah.
point, not just to not just to threaten their food source, but also to induce them to come outside,
Right.
which they take full advantage of. And and then there's this thing about the thing Boyd said, which like I looked it up because I just wanted to be sure. He says it in broad daylight when he comes out of the chamber right after smashing the music box and like breaking the spell, except for Eldred. Let's not mention that. But anyway, most of them were, at least the ones who were chained up are like fine now, relatively speaking. And you don't break me, ah! He's like, it's like his like victory chant, like, yeah, I got one. It's a win for Boyd. And they ref it, and it's like, wait, like what, like so, it just brings me back to the fact that they knew their names, right? We talked about that during the rewatch. Like it's kind of subtle because they don't talk about it a lot, but I think there was a line about it where they talk about how they know their names. And the voice on the radio knew Jim's name, and also there was Martin knowing about Abby, knowing about Boyd's wife, and like maybe she was right. Not just knowing about her, knowing what she thought specifically,
Yeah.
like it's like there's this weird thing where like this knowledge of things happening in the world is getting transmitted seemingly to these monsters. Like they know
Yeah. That
stuff that they
thing.
could not have witnessed.
That thing of she said tell the what is it like tell Mr. Can Do that
Oh, fish and
Mr. Fish
loaves.
and Loaves.
The
Yeah.
Sarah thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Fish and Loaves.
Yeah, there was that thing too. There was that thing too, which is yeah, also like a thing coming from the outside, that how do they know that and how are they deliver? I mean,
The
it's
jukebox
weird.
stuff is also coming from the outside.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. Yeah, they've shown that. So anyway, like I'm kind of putting it in that category. Like the monsters, I mean, I think it kind of helps honestly for the monsters. Like it makes them more interesting because they're more intelligent and they're
Right.
also more aware of stuff than I thought they were. Because in my head, they're just like, oh, we just go out and hunt every night and hopefully we get something. And
Yeah.
if we don't, I guess we don't really care. I don't know. Like they've never really seemed like they had like a plan. It just seemed like they were like, let's just get, whatever, we'll see what happens. And if we get a chance, we'll do some havoc and some violence and it'll be fun for us. But like this was like a real deliberate plan,
Yeah.
seemingly. And not only that, to go so specific, this thing Boyd said in a private moment is like our reason for doing this to you now.
Yeah.
We're gonna show you were wrong. The from world was listening, and we're gonna hold that against you now. It's like it's weird.
Yeah.
It's real weird. Um, and yeah, and I thought it was weird that they killed one of the cows too, because they could have done that at any time. I mean,
Yeah.
those animals were freely roaming, and the
But they
barn
didn't
wasn't
need them
protected.
desperately at that point either.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
like the psychological
Like we could have done
torture
this
of
anytime.
like,
We just
oh, you
decided
did all
not
of
to.
this work to you've been struggling with this cow. Guess what?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just take that away like
Yeah.
instantly. But yeah, it's like it seemed like they had no interest in doing that, you know, but it's like they're not really predictable. Anyway, it just kind of elevated like I mean I think they are ultimately still like serving the place. Like I don't believe that they're really in charge of the place, but it definitely like gave them a higher status than I thought they had, at least in terms of knowledge and stuff
It's
they're
more
allowed to
cunning
know.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that I mean to me like that was that was the biggest like shift in status quo as far as as far as the supernatural stuff. I mean, obviously the food running out is like a major problem they're gonna have to, but that's like at least theoretically, like that can be a practical thing. I mean, that is a thing that has happened to humans. Whereas like, you know, the monsters, like that's like deal, firmly in the fantasy, horror
Yeah.
realm and so anyway, just from that point of view, like
Yeah.
that was like a big shift in the way they're portrayed, even though like I think you can connect it to some of the stuff that they said earlier. It's just like the show hadn't really proved it before, and I think this was like the strongest proof that we've seen that they, actually do behave like that and that they know a lot more than you might think. Like they might actually know anything that they've said at any time, anywhere, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy, the implication of that. Like to me that makes them so much scarier
Yeah.
than just like, they got like a scary face and they got claws and they'll
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly dangerous before, but I don't find it all that scary.
yeah.
Which is why they needed to ratchet things up.
I think they have like some menace when they're still in human
I,
form.
I agree with that. Yeah, when they go into like
The
monster
monster mode
mode,
kind of blows
it
it.
takes it out of yeah, it takes me
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah. All right. So I think that was what I had to say about
Yeah,
this.
it's
Um
so tense. It's just awful watching it. It's like, yeah, it's not that I knew where it was going, but as soon as we show them walking up to the animal pen, it's like, oh no.
yeah. I mean, when there was like 10 monsters in there with Boyd, I'm like, how is he not dead now? Like, and I'm like, he can't be, right? I mean, he's gotta have plot armor if anyone does on this
Right.
show. I didn't think there was a chance they were gonna
Right,
kill him,
because they don't want to kill him because
but I'm like, how are they not gonna kill him? And it's like, okay, this
right,
is the point they're gonna make. This is how they can do something that's really bad to him but not actually kill him.
right.
Like, so
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense from that
I
point of view.
cannot wait to watch the next episode. Do we have to wait a week?
I think we do, sadly. This is going to be a
Ah,
week to week show. I
yeah.
said that I appreciated that, but now that we've done the podcast, I think I'm ready for the new one tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm ready. So if you are in charge of that,
Yeah.
and you're listening,
All of you executives over at MGM Plus, help us out. Help us
or
out,
even just a
MGM Plus.
programmer, just somebody who has access to it, just
Well, yeah, yeah, go rogue.
give it a little leak.
Jacketjockeys at
Yeah.
gmail.com. Send us your pirated
I don't want it all at once. I don't like that model because I don't have restraint.
mm-hmm.
But one a week is also so 1990s.
Don't
Um
you like that? Isn't that like cool retro? Like, yeah, let's do it
Man, you
old
remember
school.
that? You remember being like, "Oh my God, we gotta be home at Monday at 8 p.m. because I don't want to miss the
Yeah,
X Files. We
yeah.
gotta hurry home. Get the check. We gotta get home."
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely more
Oh my God,
urgent. It wasn't
yeah,
just there on demand for whenever you get home and stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, things used to, we used to people used to
I
care
would.
about
It
things.
was so amazing. I would record the the premiere and the finale, of shows so I could watch them again. Like I had my VHS and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
um
yeah.
man. Yeah, it was really fruitful doing the rewatch of the previous two seasons of From. Obviously I still have forgotten some of the things, but just getting excited and
Yeah,
it's just there's a lot. I had only
so
watched it
much.
once before,
Yeah.
and so yeah. I guess maybe one thing we could do while we wait is do another rewatch. I'm just kidding. That would be too much.
No, it was worth it though, because a lot of those details, like, yeah, it's hard to keep them all in your head,
Yeah,
especially if you watch other shows and have other
it's been
things
a
go
while.
on. And
There's a
yeah,
lot.
there was a whole ass writer strike and actor strike in between, and
There's
it's been a
a
while.
lot that's up in the air in the show. Is there anything that you're really hoping the next episode will take us further along on?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I definitely want more of Tabby and Camden. I want that to progress. I'm very interested in where that's going, and I want more on this mysterious cabin village. Like like that was a weird thing that definitely caught my interest in this episode. So I'm totally up for that. That's probably what I'm like most invested in
Yeah.
as far as the new season stuff goes. Um,
Yeah, I think I'm also interested in more Elgin.
Yeah, I'm interested in more Elgin
Um,
too. It's just that's on a little smaller
yeah,
scale,
yeah.
but I'm totally on board for that.
I
I
have a
agree.
feeling that Fatima is going to be boring for a while.
Pregnancy plots are tough. I was thinking about that and I'm like, where are they gonna go? Are they gonna do a Yellow Jackets or are they actually gonna have a baby and we're just gonna have to deal with like a baby all the
I mean, I
time?
hope they don't do a Yellow Jackets. I really don't want to see that.
I don't want to see it either, but it's a way to, I mean, I don't mean like literally the thing that Yellow Jackets did. I
Okay.
just mean a miscarriage or something along those
Oh, yeah, yeah.
lines. That's all I'm
It's
saying.
not, she's not going to like give birth to a bunch of locusts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh God. I mean, I guess they could do some shit like that. We'll see if they even try to build it up. They did in Yellow Jackets try to build it up as a horror thing.
Yeah.
They haven't done that here, even though she does like vaguely allude to, but it seemed like more in a like you know,
Yeah, I don't,
generalized anxiety way, like if the baby would be like deformed or have
right,
like
right.
claws or something. But like, yeah, I really question shows when they do pregnancy plots because like I think in the moment the news and uh thinking about the implications like it can give context for drama and conflict and stuff like that. And so I kind of get it on that level. And even like the birth and stuff, I kind of get that being a thing. But I think once you have the baby, it's like there's just nowhere to go from there. I've never
Oh my
seen a show
God,
that has any
yeah.
idea where to go from there.
You remember, what is it? A Quiet Place?
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Is there a worse nightmare?
Yeah, so I mean that probably is like a good use of having a baby because it uses the baby's like obliviousness for suspense.
Yeah.
The baby doesn't understand that we live in this world where we have to do this thing, and like
Yeah.
I think that actually is probably a good. But I really struggle to think of, and but that's a movie too.
Yeah.
I struggle to think of a TV show that's done a pregnancy plot where the baby comes out and it's interesting.
Yeah. I
Because it always just it collapses into either, if Fatima's gonna do something, she's gonna hand off the baby to somebody. There's gonna be some random character waiting
Yeah.
to take the baby. And then it's just like the baby's business that we have to get through.
Yeah.
You know? Like so it's like, do we really like why? Like what why would we do that? I don't
Yeah.
know. So yeah, it doesn't seem like a good decision to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that they make it work, but yeah. So far they're doing like more typical pregnancy drama stuff, which is fine. But yeah,
Yeah.
longer term.
I mean, we'll see how long they're trapped here. I
The
mean,
timeline's weird too, right? Because
yeah.
I think in the show like it's only been like a few weeks since the pilot. So in terms of that, like, she shouldn't have the baby. If they keep this kind of timeline, she shouldn't have the baby before the end of the show, even.
Right.
You know, so they're either gonna skip forward in time or do some weird supernatural thing where the pregnancy develops fast. In that case, like, what? I don't know. There's all kinds of weird stuff they could do,
Yeah,
I
that's an
guess.
alarming thought.
But it does seem like they can't just do it the normal way. I think there has to be something they do to make it,
Yeah.
happen in the world. So, but yeah, I definitely thought that it was, but so many shows do it that it's like, I'm just like, well, I guess every show's got to come around to a pregnancy plot at some point. So
Yeah.
here's ours this time. We'll just have to sit through it and hope it's, better than the worst version of it I've ever seen. Like Aaron shipped off the island at a certain point,
Yeah.
and Jiyeon too, and Walt, if you want to count him as a baby. It's not
It's
exactly the same,
but I
but
will count Locke as a baby.
you can count Locke as a
Cute.
baby for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know about that,
Okay.
but
Well,
any other final commentaries you would like to issue before we close it out?
no, I mean, I want to get Marielle and
Oh yeah,
Julie in a room to talk about what they
yep,
experienced.
yep, yep.
But
Randall's
other than
useless,
that,
so no reason
yeah,
to.
well, Randall and Julie are in the
Oh,
same place now,
I
so.
meant to say something about that actually. It's clear they're going for a Randall redemption.
Oh yeah, it has started. It
I
started as soon as he like sees the monsters and
yeah.
starts like honking.
There's only one way that kind of thing. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's two ways that kind of thing can go. You either lean into the villain thing and eventually he's killed or whatever,
Yeah,
or you have redemption. Like I think that's the only way,
yeah,
and basically like, Jade already got his redemption.
yeah,
So the latest asshole in town is Randall. And so yeah, this was definitely like the most selfless thing that we've really seen him do
yeah,
on the show, to actually care enough to honk and to care enough to risk
yeah. Because
himself to open the
honking,
bus.
exactly.
It draws attention. So yeah, like I anyway, yeah, I actually meant to mention that. It got lost in the shuffle because the other things were interesting me more. But anyway, just to say, maybe Randall could even participate in that conversation with the way it's going, and maybe he even will talk about it with Julie since they are in the same place, like you said.
Yeah.
I agree. I am curious what they're going to say, and if there will be something significant there, and maybe it even will tie into what Elgin is seeing. I don't know,
Mm.
since like that was at least seemingly connected to those events. At least that's what I was led to believe. It will be funny if it turns out that, yeah, Elgin had a dream and it tried to hurt him, but like it was just unrelated to these other dreams that were hurting people. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
weird. It's a weird coincidence if that's really true. But yeah, maybe this figure is like trying to help or trying to get help, or I don't know. Maybe it's not what it appears to be. I don't know where that's going.
Yeah, it's a thought. Hmm.
But
And who's watching it? Why does Elgin feel like he's being watched?
mm-hmm. Yep, that was a
Um.
weird line. Didn't expect that. I was
Anyway.
confused by
Anyway.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
So
Stay tuned.
stay tuned. Yeah, we might have to miss one or two and like double up or do some plans. So don't get too expectant on the timely delivery of this thing. This one's gonna be super timely, but anyway, I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep. But I
Yeah.
do want to talk about the later episodes, and we'll do it in some way in our time.
Feel free to imagine what we might say.
Hang in there patiently. Yeah, record your own version of what you think we would have said, and then you can compare it to the real one when it occurs. It'll be interesting. Send it in. Jacketjockeys@gmail.com. We're Jacket Jockeys on X.
Ugh.
If you want. And yeah, I don't know. Until next time,
Buzz, buzz,
buzz, buzz, buzz,
buzz.
y'all.
I'll never stop.